Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. The word puppet, that is the key word for this entire video, that is the overarching theme, that is the thesis of this piece. I mean, we've been covering this concept for a while, articles like this from back in 2021. Majority of Americans believe that Biden officials, not the president, are secretly running the country poll. It's of course, like I always say, the elephant in the room, everybody knows it. And this is the second time we essentially get confirmation of it. Joe Biden is not the president. He's not an independent man who's in control of what he says and what he does. He is merely a face, an empty vessel, a shell of his former self, a man that they put a diaper on and then put a clean suit on, brush his teeth and comb his hair and shove him out there. Oh, of course I forgot, stick an adrenaline needle in his buttocks before they push him out on the stage, and they just sit back, cross their fingers, and hope that he can get through at least semi-coherently what they told him to say. This has been their strategy, a little bit of a naive endeavor to say the least, because of course, as we know, Joe Biden is so off his rocker, so out of his mind, that he inevitably goes off script, like over the last week, 3 massive, and I mean massive, foreign policy gaffes, one after another, and then the White House team has to come up together with a strategy to clean up the mess that old sleepy Uncle Joe made. Joe Biden continues to say that he stands by his statements. He really meant what the real context was, trying to convince us all that everything's under control, under Joe Biden's leadership, but the reality is, everything Joe Biden is doing, everything Joe Biden is saying, is being fed to him. He is controlled, he is a political prop. And of course now we have the evidence thanks to 4K cameras, zoomed in to Joe Biden's hand, showing a little card in his hand that's literally telling him what to say. We don't call him Teleprompter Joe for nothing, and no wonder calls to impeach this man, or use the 25th Amendment to oust him, are ramping up. He's an absolute walking, talking disaster. And of course, let me show you guys exactly what's going on here. But before we get into any of it, please make sure to leave a like, a comment, subscribe, share the video as much as possible. We are still shadow banned by the YouTube algorithm, hidden from non-subscribed viewers. And with that out of the way, let's roll the tape. Alright folks, so take a look at this. Joe Biden caught using note cards during speech to answer questions. Biden had to have, quote, "I was not articulating a change in policy" written verbatim on a note card, so he wouldn't screw it up, and he still screwed it up. Take a look at this picture right over here. Tough Putin Q&A talking points. 1. If you weren't advocating for regime change, what did you mean? Can you clarify? I was expressing the moral outrage I felt towards the actions of this man. I was not articulating a foreign policy change. Of course, that's what we heard from the White House when they came and cleaned up the mess that Joe Biden made, and that's what we heard from Joe Biden when he came out on that stage and had to clarify, well, what I really meant was. The second question is blocked by the microphone, but the bottom portion says, is this now threatening to splinter unity with your NATO allies? Most likely related to Emmanuel Macron claiming that Joe Biden's comments when it came to him eluding regime change, Emmanuel Macron said were unhelpful, to which they literally needed to write down for him, no, NATO has never been more unified, or united rather. This is not the sign of a coherent, commanding, competent leader. This is the sign of a nursing home patient who literally needs basic sentences like, I was not articulating a change in policy, and no, NATO is more united than ever. He needs those statements written down so he knows how to address these tough Putin questions. This is ridiculous. And this comes out, by the way, after the White House clarifies that only President Biden decides what President Biden is going to say. Well, if that's the case, then why does he need a teleprompter or note cards to direct his talking points in response to very simple questions? Why is it that if Joe Biden is speaking for himself and doesn't need anybody to tell him what to say, that he constantly makes remarks that the White House then has to clarify or then has to take back? I mean, Joe Biden's the president of the United States, but where you're going to get accurate information as to what the White House is doing is from White House staffers and not from the actual president of the United States. It's a complete disaster. There's one article that I stumbled on earlier today when I was doing research for this video, and it is completely perfect to describe the sentiment that I think many of you are feeling. Matt Vespa from Town Hall writes, "This man is going to get us all killed." And this is why we are seeing a surge in the press questioning Joe Biden's cognitive decline, because as predicted, it's now becoming a national security risk. I mean, who would have thought? Of course, Tucker Carlson is leading this push. Tucker Carlson sounds off. Now is time to invoke the 25th Amendment.
But Biden is the president of the United States, and this is the single most volatile moment in the recent history of our country. Biden is leading the U.S. toward war. And so it's fair to assess the effect on the rest of us of his mental and emotional condition. It's not simply about age. Biden is 79. Biden is clearly unable to speak with precision. Ever a time, if there was in U.S. history ever a time to invoke the 25th Amendment, it is now. As Joe Biden himself put it, for God's sakes, this man cannot remain in power.
And it's finally time, I guess better late than never, to honestly have this conversation related to Joe Biden's clear cognitive collapse. For Pete's sakes, just the other day, when talking about Emmett Till, take a look at what he said.
America and the world saw what she saw. Emmett Till was born nearly 40 years ago, after the first anti-lynching law was introduced.
Emmett Till was born nearly 40 years ago. 40 years ago. For those of you guys who are good at math, when was 40 years ago? Not exactly complicated. 1982. Apparently, Emmett Till was born in 1982, according to Joe Biden. Clearly not. Emmett Till was born in 1941. This, of course, coming from the same president who has claimed multiple times that he served in the United States Senate for 120 years. His brain no worky. The man should have his driver's license revoked. But for Pete's sakes, this man has the nuclear codes. It's unjustifiable. He is a puppet. He is an empty shell. These are the people who are leading you. Speaking of these are the people, you think Joe Biden's the only one? Of course not. That's Joe Biden, the president. Here's Nancy Pelosi, third in line to the presidency.
The other thing that we're getting we're sending stuff over to the Senate. Well, most of the product that we've done is, except now we may have added in the last day or so, and some of what we added is Senate to the bill, like a hearing. Bernie doesn't like hearing. Excuse me, Bernie loves hearing. Manchin doesn't want hearing in the bill and all that stuff. So some is Senate-oriented, and then we have the family medical leave. We figured if they're putting things in, then we can put something in, even if Manchin doesn't like it. So we are getting some bird and privilege. I think mostly we're getting privilege scrub, because privilege scrub is deadly to a bill. Bird, it's important. You have to take it out, but privilege violation can take you out.
Of course, that's number 3. And just for good measure, here's number 2 in line to the presidency.
The governor and I, and we were all doing a tour of the library here and talking about the significance of the passage of time, right? The significance of the passage of time. So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs. And there is such great significance to the passage of time when we think about a day in the life of our children.
Complete incompetence, total incoherence. And yes, finally, hopefully people are realizing it is a national security risk. Not to mention the fact that Joe Biden could potentially be a compromised asset if it's true that he is in fact the big guy, where the impeachment of Donald Trump was nothing but a political witch hunt and scam to begin with, and should have never happened. The possible impeachment or 25th Amendment used on Joe Biden wouldn't be a political witch hunt or political scam. At this point, it's the constitutional and patriotic duty of those representing you holding current public office. This guy has got to go. He is a walking disaster. I'm not going to say walking, talking disaster because the guy literally can't talk. And while that headline that I referred to earlier pretty much says it all, he is going to get us all killed. What an absolute train wreck. And I'm sitting here left just saying what I've always been saying. As sad as it is, we told you so. Everything they claimed was hyperbolic, partisan rhetoric when it comes to Joe Biden's mental state or his total incompetence turned out in the end to be quite prophetic. That's what I got for you guys though. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like, a comment, subscribe, share it as much as possible. We are still shadow banned by the YouTube algorithm. I'm going to get back to work. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.